This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome everyone to the July 22nd, 2021 board meeting for the Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors. We are recording this meeting audio and video in some cases here. With us tonight we have Supervisors Betsy DeVreda, Helen Wheatley, Doug Rushton, and myself, TJ Johnson, Chair. We expect Supervisor David Ayala to join us later. He was delayed with a flight, apparently. We also have staff members Sarah Moorhead and Leah Kellogg. We have our legal counsel, Ben Cushman from Deschutes Law Group. We have Jean Fike from the State Conservation Commission. And we have Elena Reynolds from the Washington State Department of Ecology. I think I hopefully got everybody there. Welcome, everyone.
TJ, excuse me.
Yes.
We did have another caller join us. That might be David. David, are you on the phone?
That's probably me, Doug.
That's what I assumed. Doug shows up as a caller here. So no David. I think we'll see if he joins us later. First item up here is agenda review. We have proposed one change from the agenda that was sent out. It is reflected here in what we see before us. We've added a new item 8A, which is dealing with the request for collective bargaining with our union. So we'll take that as item 8A. We'll move what had been 8A, which is our board meeting development for August, to 8B. Are there any other changes from either board or staff to our agenda? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Helen. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Betsy. Roll call vote on the agenda. Helen?
Aye.
Betsy?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We have approved our agenda. Next up is item 3, our consent agenda. It's a fairly lengthy consent agenda this evening. I will read for the record all of the items that we will be approving on consent, beginning with the June 24th, 2021 board meeting minutes, the June 8th, 2021 special meeting minutes, the July financial report, the TCD resolution 2021-04, the State Conservation Commission cost share rate, TCD resolution 2021-05, cooperator labor rate, Washington State Conservation Commission 2021 funding addendums dealing with implementation CREP and NRI, and finally the voluntary stewardship program agreement with Thurston County. Is there a motion on our consent agenda?
I wanted to ask if we could take the item G off. I have a question about it.
Yes, just I'm gonna just ask my dog to be quiet. Sorry about that. Okay, Betsy's asked to pull item G off of consent. We will deal with that immediately after consent. So the remaining items on the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve that agenda?
I moved.
Moved by Betsy. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Helen. Roll call vote. Betsy?
Aye.
Helen?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We've approved our consent agenda. That now brings us to the item that was pulled from consent, the voluntary stewardship program agreement. Betsy?
Yeah, so I mean, I see that mainly we're just looking at the highlighted items that are yellow, I assume. That's what's been changed. Sarah?
Yes. Yeah, the highlighted items were additions from our council into the document itself, which were accepted by Thurston County. Yeah, okay. So the agreement is final. a final draft, and it's been reviewed in its final form by both counsel from both parties.
Okay, so maybe I missed it when it came by earlier. I'm just curious that the main reason I pulled it, which is I'm just curious why the budget for the education and outreach is nearly half of the budget for the technical assistance that we actually offer. It seems like a lot. I'd like to see more going into the assistance.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Betsy. And there's two components to that. One is that the district also adds additional technical assistance funding for the voluntary stewardship program through rates and charges. So we do have $40,000 in this year's budget that pairs with this to help expand the technical assistance. The other component of that is that this funds a lot of our courses and workshops for producers. So things like enrolling in VSP and what does that mean, and helping walk larger groups of people through filling out the checklist to enter the program, having workshops on things like how to flash graze your wetland buffer and some of those lengthier topics that apply to a lot of people. We can do those topical specific workshops and trainings and create those materials. And one of the particular interests of the VSP work group in this next biennium is doing a lot more advertising and communications work around the program to continue to expand and increase enrollment. So that covers things like mailing postcards to folks, as well as drafting articles, working with newspaper media, making videos, things like that. It is definitely a program that is well supported by both sides. We did get a bump in our overall biennium agreement this year from the previous biennium of $40,000. So that was really a wonderful thing to see from Thurston County.
Okay, great. Thanks for explaining that to me.
Absolutely, that's a great question.
Okay, if there are no further questions, you want to make a motion on this item, Betsy?
Yes, I move that we approve the voluntary stewardship program agreement.
Moved by Betsy. Is there?
I'll second.
Seconded by Doug. Roll call vote. Betsy?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Helen?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. We have approved the voluntary stewardship program agreement. Thank you. It takes us to item 5, public comment. I don't see anyone from the public on our call tonight, but I will ask if there's anyone that wishes to make public comment and address the board this evening. This is your opportunity. Speak up now if you do. Seeing no one and hearing no one.
Leah has a hand up. Leah, is your hand up for a reason?
Okay, Leah?
I wanted to ask if Supervisor IL was excused from this meeting, or are we waiting for him to arrive?
We expect him to arrive at some point. Yes, he's contacted us and he's hoping to be here. Okay, so I will close public comment since we don't have any public comment, and we will move on to partner reports. I don't see Robin Buckingham with us tonight, but he did give us a rather lengthy report at our last meeting. And I know we will be hearing from NRCS in September at our work session as well. So we'll move past NRCS. We'll move to the State Department of Ecology. We did get a written report, but Elena is with us tonight. Elena, do you have any additional information you'd like to share with the board?
Hi, thanks, TJ. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. And I just wanted to let you all know that we're kind of expanding our PIC work that is in conjunction with CD staff as well as local health departments, and we're trying to bring in people from the shellfish protection districts as well as the State Department of Health. Just giving you that heads up. If you give me 1 second, I can bring one more thing up. Sorry, delay. That's why. And sorry, GoToMeeting messes with my browser, but we are having our workshops in August, and that update that will be published next week will have the specific dates for that in order to have our notice of intent to apply for our combined water quality funding program. That's all.
Okay, are there any questions for Elena? Not hearing any, so thank you for being here and for sharing that with us. You're of course welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but we understand if you have other things to do as well. Move to the next item under partner reports, which is the State Conservation Commission report. Hello, Jean. What do you have for
Hello,
us?
everybody. How you doing? I have a couple things I wanted to mention, that I'm happy to take any questions or talk about anything else that you'd like. For anyone that missed the news, we're all sort of reeling a little bit. Carol Smith announced that she's going to be retiring. Her last official day will be October 22nd, and then she'll be taking some leave after that. She has plans to travel and see family, and we're all very happy for her, but we're going to miss her. So there's that. I wanted to mention, you should have seen a GovDelivery message. The Commission has been working on a 5-year strategic planning process, and we would love to have people's feedback on our goals, right? Before we talk about how to accomplish the goals, we want to make sure that we get the goals right. So there's a survey out there. I'll attach it in my email. We're looking for feedback by the 16th of August, please. There's also a survey out. You should have got this one, not through GovDelivery, but just through a standard email distribution list. This is from the Joint Committee on Elections. Doug may want to talk about this more later, but I just want to make sure that people are aware of the August 18th deadline for responding to that survey. Folks can respond individually or as a board, whatever works for y'all. But I'm really hoping that folks, do take the time to respond. It's a really important topic, I think. I'm going to attach some information you should have seen come from Allison Halpern, who is now our scientific policy advisor. She has a new title, which is very exciting. A couple of these things are fairly time sensitive. One is an idea about climate auditors. I'm not sure exactly the source of the idea. It seemed to me kind of notional at this stage, but it would be good for her to know if there are districts that would be interested in something like a shared FTE, along the lines of maybe the engineering positions, to do work around climate, carbon sequestration, energy savings, these kinds of things. So if you would let her know, I'll attach the information. You can get back to her. She's also looking for information on successful, CRMs by August the 6th. And then she has some information about the Pollinator Health Task Force that you guys might find interesting. And then if I haven't mentioned it yet, apologies if this is repetitive. So you may have heard that there was a new executive order for cultural resources work, replacing 0505, it's 2102. It's very similar to 0505. There are a few differences, and so we're going through a policy update process at the Commission to make sure that all of our policies and processes are fully compliant with the new executive order. They largely are, but you'll be seeing that process. There was an introduction to it at the July Commission meeting. The intention is to present for final acceptance at the September meeting, and in between there will be a request for feedback from districts. You should see that come out, I believe, middle of next week. So please keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, if you have any cultural resource surveys, please don't wait. The programs, the procedures and forms and all of that we have in place do comply with 2102. So you're fine to go forward with what we have now. We ask that you just go to the website as we're updating forms and pull down the most recent. So it's current as you're working through. And I'm happy to take any questions about any of that or anything else. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean. Questions for Jean from board or staff?
I have one comment, TJ.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I just want to share with the board that I did respond with some interest in exploring the climate-related cluster position housed at Thurston CD. It definitely aligns with our strategic plan. And we have a lot of other climate related work through other grants that could make a really nice whole position. And I know that that's a big challenge with some of our other districts, you know, finding a half FTE, and I think it would be a great support that we could provide. So I did respond to that request from Allison.
Wonderful.
I was going to follow up on that too, Sarah. That one, I agree with you. I think that that's a pretty natural fit for a lot of what we've been talking about and working on here. And I'm wondering if maybe we should spend some time at our September work session, since we're not having or maybe at our August board meeting, talking about that a little bit more and thinking a little bit more about how that could help the district and how we might be able to help other districts with that as well.
That sounds great. I have it on the list.
I see Helen shaking her head some, and I'm not hearing anybody say no. So let's spend some time talking about that. Okay, great. Anything further for Jean? Okay. Thanks, Jean. Thanks for being here. It's good to see you again. That moves us on to WACD and NACD. Doug gave us his written report, I believe, last week. Doug, do you have anything to add to your written reports?
Yeah, a whole lot. We had a board meeting on Monday, the 19th, and I'm leaving at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to the NACD summer meeting, which I'm not looking forward to in a lot of ways because I don't like getting on planes, even if we are supposedly at the end of the pandemic. Anyway, that's Doug's problem right now. Thanks, Gene, for talking about the elections. It's a joint committee with the Conservation Commission and WACD. And they think the report we got was we think that there's a pretty close to consensus on that for a proposal, and that they hope to have recommendations on the Elections Committee and also the DEI Committee for the area meetings, which are in late September, early October. And I think we've got our oar in the water on that pretty well, since David is on the DEI Committee and we're all following the elections pretty closely. There were a couple other items that were pretty prevalent at the Monday meeting. We had an overview of WACD's investments via Edward Jones. I have some reservations about Edward Jones because I used to work with those guys, and some of them didn't seem very good to me. That's just a personal opinion. But the finances are really quite good at WACD. They're flush enough, we're flush enough to knock $400 off the annual membership to give some of the smaller districts a break. A couple of districts have said, no, we want to pay the full amount. You guys do such good work. So that was kind of gratifying to hear that. And the last part of the WACD report is that the Plant Materials Center had its best year ever this past year, despite the pandemic. So that's really a testimony to the work those folks have done. I can give a bit of a report on NRCS too, because Roylene Comes at Night, who's the state conservationist, was at our meeting on Monday. She said that the West Area Conservationist Joe Williams has left and moved to a different position, and Amy Hendershot, who many of us know, will be the acting for that. And it raised my eyebrows on this one because I was thinking of TJ. NRCS is looking at the possibility of having an urban conservationist for the state. So that's something they've never had before. That's pretty exciting to me. And they're looking at also emergency funding for drought and fire. And there will be a 30-day sign up. And that's supposed to be announced this week or next week. And that's all I have. Nothing new with NACD.
That announcement about the drought material, I think that came out today. I got that in my personal email today, so that's on the streets now. And I think it came through
Okay, good.
Strong or something. I forget where I got it, but it did come into my inbox today, so it's out now.
Okay, good.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Any questions for Doug on NACD or WACD? Hearing none, we will close partner reports and we'll move on to item 7, our mid-year revised budget. This is an action item tonight. We looked at a revised mid-year budget for our unrestricted funds at our work session. And then yesterday, I believe, or maybe within the last couple days, Yandong sent us the revised budget for the restricted funds. So that one we didn't see at the work session. Clearly, we have not much flexibility with the restricted funds. A lot more with the unrestricted funds, although we didn't really make any changes beyond those proposed by staff, as I recall. I see Susan just joined us. Welcome, Susan. Perfect timing. We just hit the budget right here. Sarah, do you want to take this over now and say anything further before we take actions on these things?
Just that we are here and happy to answer any questions that the board has. TJ gave a great overview that the unrestricted budget is what we went over and reviewed at the work session. The restricted budget includes a lot of that new biennium funding and new grants that we are working through contracting on. I really appreciate Susan and Yen being able to close one biennium and open another in record time. And definitely Leah was a huge component of that as well. So I have no further information to share, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And you're right, Susan is here as well.
Okay, so before questions, I will just note that Supervisor David Ayala has just joined us. So welcome, David. To orient you, we just started talking about item 7 here. And I'm now going to ask if the board has any additional questions on the mid-year revised budget, either restricted or unrestricted, before we take action. So are there questions for either Susan or Sarah on the budget?
Being I don't have an option to raise my hand for the GoToMeeting service, I would like to ask if staff, Susan or Sarah, have any reservations about this or any potential yellow flags, not quite red flags, but any concerns whatsoever.
Thank you, Doug. No concerns at this point. We are looking really good for the rest of the year and being able to tackle some of those high priority needs with our budget. We will be looking as grant contracts are underway, probably as part of the 2022 budgeting process at staffing levels. And that was something that we talked about in the work session and just making sure we have adequate staffing to complete those. No concerns on my end.
Sarah, does that then also mean that staff is recommending we approve the budgets as presented?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Doug, did you have anything further?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, anything from any other supervisor, questions or concerns with these budgets? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I will ask for a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the budget as presented.
I'll second.
Seconded by David. We'll do a roll call vote. And again, we're talking about the 2021 mid-year revised budget, both restricted and unrestricted. Doug, how do you vote?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Helen?
Aye.
Betsy?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We have approved the revised budget unanimously. It moves us to item 8 on our agenda, the Conservation and Education Center feasibility study contract with the Beckwith Consulting Group. Sarah.
Thank you, TJ, and thank you so much to the Conservation and Education Center subcommittee. We had a really excellent meeting after the board work session, and we're able to generate some really specific interests and actions and directive. We shared that with Beckwith, as well as the dollar amount that the board placed in the budget. for the feasibility study, and we were able to work with Beckwith and negotiate the scope that was desired and to be within our budget. So I'm grateful for that. The contract itself has been, of course, reviewed by legal counsel and accepted by Beckwith Consulting Group. This is the final form, and staff recommendation is approved. Any questions?
Thanks, Sarah. Questions for Sarah? Or comments from the work group, the subcommittee?
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment. I was really happy to see that after we had met with our subcommittee that we did get the contract down a bit. So, and without many cuts too, that was pretty nice. Looked like the only cuts were mainly the meetings that they were going to have to hold with us. So, I think we're in good shape.
Thank you, David, and to all the folks who worked with Sarah on that contract. Betsy.
I wondered if Sarah, if you have had any time to estimate whether it's really a net savings, given that some of the work now will be done by CD staff and board.
Yeah, well, our funding comes from different places, essentially for both of these. We're paying for, one FTE, for example, for unrestricted staff or administrative staff annually. And so it's a workload prioritization question, I think, versus a net savings. I do think that we can achieve those deliverables much more efficiently and in less time than what was presented in the proposal from Beckwith. I feel really good about the work that we are performing in-house and the work that the consultant is performing. It plays to both of our strengths, I think, and I really actually like the way that this turned out.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions for Sarah? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion on the feasibility study contract with the Beckwith Consulting Group.
I so move.
Moved by Betsy. Is there a second?
I'll second. Doug?
Seconded by Doug. Roll call vote. Betsy?
Aye.
Doug?
I'm not sure what's going on there. I vote aye.
Thank you. David?
Aye.
Helen?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We have approved the contract unanimously. Thank you. That moves
Mr.
us.
Chair, I would like
Yes,
to make
sir.
known again that I know two of the people on the consulting group's staff very, very well. And I've had no contact with any of them regarding any of this. I
Thank
just
you
want
for that
you all to know
disclosure,
that.
Doug. Thank you. That moves us to item 9, governance. The item we added to our agenda here, response to the Washington Federation of State Employees collective bargaining request. We did receive that request in writing last week. Sarah, do you want to say anything introductory about that before we start to figure out how we proceed?
Absolutely. So we did receive our formal request to bargain to create our new contract that will be in effect beginning in 2022. Moving forward, I would love to revisit again the supervisors that are interested in participating in that process and remind folks that we have an existing contract to work from. So that'll be a great starting point. I'm looking for direction from the board tonight to begin to respond and begin the scheduling process between the negotiating team from the union and our collective bargaining unit and the conservation district's bargaining team.
Sarah, can you remind us which supervisors participated in that process last year?
Yeah, in our last contract, it was Betsy and Paul.
That's right. Okay.
And I believe Betsy had preliminary interest in participating again this year.
And did you feel like 2 board members and yourself was a sufficient team to work through that contract last time? Is that what you would recommend this time?
Absolutely, that was a great team, I think, for our initial contract. I think if the board is comfortable with one board representative, we could even do one board representative and myself, if the board would like to. I think no more than 2, because of quorum issues, would make for an efficient team on the district side.
Okay, thank you. And so Betsy, you are interested in being a part of that?
I am. I will say that Paul did most of the talking because I had never been a part of anything like that. So, you know, I've learned a little bit, and I can always come back to the board with questions, but I'm happy to represent you all if you feel comfortable with just me doing it.
I will ask if there's another board member that wants to be a part of that bargaining team in addition to Betsy.
Well, I could sit in on it, but I have about as much expertise or less than Betsy. But it's a good learning experience for me, I guess. So I wouldn't be bringing much to the table, but I'd be willing to participate.
I personally think that would be a good idea to have a second person there because it's training for the board. And as we think about board succession, you know, Betsy might not always be on the board. Paul's already gone. So it would be good if we have more than one person who's been through that process in case some of us decide to leave over time.
No.
Are there any objections to having Helen and Betsy act as board representatives to the bargaining team along with Sarah?
No, it'd be great for me.
I think they'll do just fine. They know enough to ask questions. Some of us have been with unions before, and I have Paul's home phone number, and I've been in a couple unions, so I'll be glad to help where I can. But you guys are smart. You can figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could ring my firm in on scheduling so that I can make sure that I'm available for spot answering questions. I had a few come up last time, as I recall, but I'm not sure. But if I could just make sure that I have a clear day during that time, I can nimbly answer any questions that you send me.
Okay, so it sounds like the direction to Sarah is to work with Betsy and Helen and our bargaining unit to begin scheduling some negotiation sessions and moving that contract process forward so we can get that done and wrapped up and in place before the end of this year. Do you need anything further from us, Sarah? Oh, Betsy, go ahead.
Every time I raise my hand, I have to figure out which hand will show in the camera.
That one's working.
It's just not the way you expect it to be. My question is this going to be a virtual meeting or in person?
I think that is subject to comfortability and preference of both respective parties, and something that we can definitely explore during our scheduling process if you have a preference.
Okay. Do you anticipate it'll be as many meetings as before? I would think many less, much less.
I would anticipate fewer meetings and possibly fewer hours to those meetings, just because we have a framework already. But we will see what topics come up as part of that process and what type of legwork and decision making that we need to do in the interim. But I would anticipate less hours overall.
Okay.
Okay, Sarah, do you feel like you have sufficient direction to move forward?
Yeah, I have one question for Ben, and that is, do you think that we should get a formal motion on the record designating the collective bargaining team on behalf of the district?
I think we should have a formal motion on the record accepting their bargaining request and appointing the team to both of those things.
I will make a motion to that effect.
So the motion is to recognize their request to bargain and to respond by appointing a team to represent the district. That team includes Betsy, Helen, and Sarah, and to begin the process of communicating with the bargaining unit as soon as possible.
Yes, yes.
Okay, second.
Okay, seconded by Helen. So we'll vote. Doug,
Aye.
Helen,
Aye.
Betsy,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. That's a unanimous vote to move forward with responding and negotiating. Thank you. And thank you, Betsy and Helen, for being willing to do that. That moves us to item 9B, the agenda development for our August board meeting. Looks like Sarah's got that up on the screen here for us. Fairly standard items, partner reports, consent.
We talked about having a discussion about the climate auditor.
Yes, let's add that. It looks like we have plenty of time on this agenda to do that, so maybe we put that under governance. And then I also, item 6 here, we talked about at our work session, a resolution to WACD on cultural resources, and Sarah was going to bring, and maybe Doug, I forget who was working on that, is going to bring us something at that board meeting to respond to. Anything further that anyone wants to add to this agenda at this point?
I think we ought to have a discussion on the results after the August 10th get together at TJ's.
You know, critique my farm, Doug.
Yeah, there you go.
There's a lot to critique.
This will be great. You know, it's been 18 months or so. Criminy. Looking forward to it. Yep.
Okay, well, we'll go with this here as our draft agenda that'll be sent out for the August meeting. Clearly plenty of time to make adjustments before we get to that date.
I think Helen has a question or a comment.
I'm sorry, did I miss you, Helen? Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. Well, I just had a question. So a big topic there is the work session, well, the September work session topic list development. And I'm just wondering if Sarah, you or TJ could sort of fill me in on what the process is for, is this where budgeting starts to be talked about, or how does the budget process fit into all of this? And
yeah,
or what's the norm for September, I guess?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Helen. Staff is still aggregating a lot of the budget information from the third quarter in September. So we start to build as a staff the budget framework in that month to present to the board in October. That's really when the board's budgeting process starts, because we have much more detail and information moving into next year about budgets and contracts and actuals. September, one of the highest priority pieces is the Southwest area meeting for WACD and the resolutions process. The board is working through any of those resolutions. Oftentimes our September meeting falls just before that deadline to get those resolutions to WACD. In terms of standard business, that's one of the big ones. In addition to that, September is right at the end of the federal fiscal year. And so any federal contracts, typically, we like to, or you'll see in September to begin October 1. So that's an area where you might see some of those contracts that we're anticipating that are reflected in that restricted budget, like our Sentinel Landscape money from NACD is one example. The commission also will be awarding shellfish cost share, and that typically happens a little bit later, August or September timeframe. So you might see some more addendums for the commission. Those are some of the typical items of business that take place right around that September timeframe.
All right, thanks.
Okay, good question.
I think that's a really great description, Sarah. And I would add on the resolutions, it's just not our resolutions. We'll be seeing resolutions from other districts, and we may not like some of them. We may like to coordinate with somebody to give more power to it. So that can be a big deal, but good overview.
Doug, do you know whether the district meetings are going to be virtual or in person this year?
Not for sure yet. They're still talking about it. Each of the areas is decided by the people within the area, so it's not clear yet.
So that might be something that we'll even want to talk about in September. Our representation and the format for those meetings.
Yeah, no, I think that's good, and I think we should start thinking in September of who might go to the NACD meeting the next January too.
Okay, great. Okay, if there's nothing further on this, we have a draft August board meeting agenda. That moves us to the next item, which is board supervisor reports. I'll start at the top of my screen here. Betsy, do you have anything to share? Betsy has a no. Helen.
Well, I have some personal flakiness to share because there's the TRPC retreat is this coming Monday, and something's come up and I have to be out of town, so I'm not going to be able to attend it. So I was going to ask David if, Dave, are you planning to attend that meeting? The retreat? Or if not, if any
pop up that said David has left our meeting.
Oh, okay.
So he
well, I mean, if anybody's interested, I did order lunch. So anyway.
So what's for lunch?
Yeah, can't tell you, but it's
David's back.
David's back now. Yeah. So you want to ask that question again?
Yeah, I was just saying that I'm not going to be able to make it to the retreat, the TRPC retreat on Monday. So I was wondering if you were going to be able to make it.
Yeah, I'm planning on making it.
Well, okay, then no worries. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further, Helen?
Nope.
David, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report this month.
Doug?
Well, I'm kind of like Helen. It's a personal issue. My wife has retired, so we have to spend all this time together now, and we both had our individual lives, and so we're getting reacquainted. It's interesting.
Well, good luck with that one, Doug.
Thank you. You guys shouldn't be grinning about that. It's been different. We have different philosophies on a lot of stuff. We'll figure it out though.
Thank you. I'll report a couple of things. One is at the work session, I volunteered to contact the 3 applicants for our CAC and tell them where we were at with that process. I called them, but left voicemails for all of them and have not heard back from any of them. So I'm going to follow up with them again next week. It's summer. People are busy. People are doing things. But just so you know, that process is underway. Then the second thing has to do with the farmland preservation work we're doing with the City of Olympia. We did meet, our work group met with the City Council Land Use and Environment Committee last week on the 15th and presented our work over the last year and our recommendations going forward. And the meeting actually went a long time. It was almost 2 hours, actually maybe even over 2 hours. It was a really good discussion. The two members of the Land Use Committee who aren't on the work group had a lot of questions. But the bottom line is that they were both very supportive of everything that we were recommending. And probably the highlight was, at least from the Land Use Committee's perspective, they agreed that if the development takes place at the Spooner Farm site, the city will have to mitigate that loss of farmland. So that will be,
Wow.
that was our recommendation to the Land Use Committee. The Land Use Committee said yes to that. And my understanding in a subsequent conversation is there's at least one and probably two members of the City Council that will agree to that. So I think when push comes to shove, we will have a majority of the City Council that recognizes they can't destroy a farmland without mitigating it, and there will be some mitigation for that loss. And considering that was the single issue that started this process up 2.5 years ago or longer, I consider that a success. And there were a lot of other good recommendations. Sarah sent out that report. Hopefully you all got a chance to look at it. But the next step is the committee will meet again in August and kind of debrief on the Land Use Committee thing. And then we've got a fairly aggressive work plan and a number of topics that we'll need to tackle over the next year to tee it up so that we have concrete budget proposals ready for the city's 2023 budget process, which will start next August. Yeah, Betsy.
I did read some of those reports, and I was very happy to see, I don't know if you remember, but at the work session, I said, you know, it's one thing to have farmland, but we got to get people farming. And there were a lot of things that addressed that in your plan and work. It was great. There were a lot of good ideas. And I really liked seeing the idea that there might be some vegetable processing equipment purchased to get local food for schools, because that's just never been feasible. Farmers never can get a price they're comfortable with, and schools don't. They want stuff all cut up, and they want it ready to put out on the buffet or whatever you call it, you know. And so it's really not happening much. So I was happy to see that.
Yeah. I think the encouraging thing to me is, while this started as a discussion about mitigating the loss of farmland, it's morphed into a much larger discussion about the city's roles and responsibilities in the local food system. And that's opened us up to a whole lot of creative ideas and a lot of creative thinking. And even some of the folks within the city that were a little hesitant at first, like the parks director, is now putting together a grant proposal to look at whether we can create an agri-park in the city of Olympia.
Wow.
To pull some of this stuff together. So I feel like we've educated both city staff and the council along the way. And really, in part, thanks to Council Member Madrone's leadership, we've expanded this discussion in a much broader and much more necessary way.
So maybe that's where we'll put the CEC.
That is on the table. We've been talking about that. The last thing I wanted to mention on this topic is, given how much work we've done over the last year, and I think the success we're beginning to see now, I'm thinking that this might be a really interesting topic to present at the WACD conference this year. And I don't know if it's too late or what the process is for proposing workshop ideas or whatever, but I think maybe if you're all okay with it, maybe Sarah and I would put our heads together at some point and think about how we spin this into a workshop that might be of interest to other districts, encouraging them to maybe take similar steps in their own communities. And I see some positive nods on that, so no objections. Sarah and I will talk about that and we'll figure something out.
If I can help with that, let me know. Be glad
Thank
to.
you.
Yeah, because we haven't really started that part yet, because we're not
Right.
sure if it's
Yep.
going to be in person or what.
So we have plenty of time to work on that. That's good.
We do have an
Okay.
in.
And an in. Okay, so that concludes the board reports. It takes us to the next item, the ED report. Do you have anything, Sarah?
I have a couple of quick items mostly. One is when I was moving the voluntary stewardship program agreement off of consent into the regular meeting, I accidentally also deleted from this agenda the WACD or commission authorized signers form. It was in the posted agenda and included in your packet. Just wanted to call that out in the public meeting that was a component of that consent item as well. And here if there were any questions or concerns from the board on that piece, I apologize for accidentally deleting that when I moved the VSP component.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. For the record, our consent agenda was approved unanimously, and it did include authorization of the 2021-2023 authorized signer form for the State Conservation Commission.
Thank you so much, TJ. The other components of my update are I did send out some information in my board packet about the American Rescue Plan funding piece. This is just a reminder to connect or share ideas with me or directly with WSU Extension Stephen Bramwell as we're crafting some of that agricultural market reset framework and some of the opportunities that can take place in that. I am working with Stephen right now to discuss some more of that processing level infrastructure and working on an agreement with the Port of Olympia and the Southwest Washington Growers Cooperative to get some of that vegetable processing infrastructure there so that local food can go direct to institutions like schools, like we were mentioning. I'll have a good update for you at the August meeting on that. Helen, yes.
Sorry. Yeah, I did have a question about that. The $1 million reserved for ideas to resolve labor shortage. Can you explain, is there anything to be said about that? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's an evolving discussion. And really it's anybody who is interested and has ideas that can come into that conversation are welcome. Stephen has been leading a lot of the direct conversation around labor with our local farm operations. There have been massive labor shortages, let alone, skilled labor shortages for farm work. And there's a lot of different factors, including wage and housing and able bodies in this area to do that work. And so there's an idea that maybe some of that funding can be directed towards any one or multiple of those issues to help resolve that and try and bridge that labor gap. One of the conversations that I had with Stephen was around potentially making a connection with the Department of Veterans Affairs to do veteran interns as a conduit into that, fill that labor gap in the short term and do some job training. There's a lot of interest in veterans moving into agriculture, and that would be a great way to help provide some of that mentorship and that connection to existing farmers that have land and have farm businesses. So that's one of the ideas that's being worked on and would have a cost for those internships. So others are definitely welcome.
Yeah, because it was like half of the $2 million there is being talked about for that one thing. So it seems like it's the top priority. And it does seem like from our perspective, the best use of that would be for training new people into farming and conservation work.
And that was an allowable use of the American Rescue Plan funding, is to do career training programs. And so that is one of, I think, the most successful pathways that's being discussed as part of this really complex topic. Other questions on that, or comments or thoughts? The last update that I have is the Thurston County Agricultural Advisory Committee welcomed a new committee member this week. Mercy Karaoke McGee from the Hockey Farmers Collective has now been appointed to the Agricultural Advisory Committee. So the committee at this point is riding with full seats in each spot, and that's a great space. They've had vacancies for some time, so it's exciting to see diverse perspectives represented there. The Ag Committee will be meeting with the Board of County Commissioners on August 11th at 2 p.m. To give an update and a presentation about some of the conversations and work that has been going on within the Ag Committee, and have some discussion with the county commissioners about agricultural priorities in the community. I plan to attend that meeting and have volunteered to help develop that presentation. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that. I'll share that information via email if you're interested in also viewing or attending that. And then the last, I guess, sort of update on a personal note is I will be on annual leave Monday and Tuesday of next week. So that's all I have.
And when you're on leave, will Stephanie be acting as director if necessary?
Yes, at this time, Stephanie will continue to be acting if necessary. I will be also in service and reachable.
Well, unless it's a real crisis, I hope no one has to reach you, because leave is important and work-life balance is important, and it's good to get away sometimes.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions for Sarah? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Helen. Is there a second?
I will second.
Seconded by Betsy. Roll call vote. Helen.
Aye.
Betsy.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Doug.
And I say I enjoy these meetings way more than I used to.
Well, I will vote aye, and I will concur with that. Thank you all. It's 6:27. We got it done in under an hour today, and I look forward to seeing you all here at Urban Futures Farm on August 10th in person, real people-to-people kind of thing for good food and some time with our staff. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you all.